Hey there, I'm so glad that you could join me. Thanks for stopping by. This is the Generator Podcast, where we have long, casual conversations about the act of creation. Now, that could be the creation of art or business or even relationships. I'm your host, Matt Stagliano, and I love to have these types of conversations because not only do I get to know what my guests do, but I understand why they do it. So stick around, get inspired, get educated, get informed, and understand that no matter what you're creating, it's worth talking about. Thanks again for joining me. Now on with the show.
I don't know what just happened. That was so weird. You said, I'm going to hit record. And then it was just like.
It's the perfect Murphy's Law moment. Perfect moment right there. And there's no better way to start this whole thing than for something like that to happen.
I know,
because now
right?
that the awkwardness is out of the way.
I'm a scattered mess coming on here. Then as soon as the thing, my whole system shuts down, I'm just like, yeah, this is starting off great. I'm making a really wonderful impression.
Oh, stop. I think this is great. And it's good to see you finally. I don't think.
Yeah, likewise. I'm going to tell you, I'm moving this. I have loved the Artist Forge and everything. I look up, God, Becca, she's like my hero. And it's just like, because all the stuff that she makes out of nothing, and then like, well, all of you are like really, really great photographers and consider you my peers, and like to actually get compliments on my work by people I look up to. I'm like,
so you can continue with this for at least another hour because I'll take all the compliments.
I'm just gonna blow your. We don't need an ego boost, like I remember the first time I put one of my pictures out there. I was like, oh God, okay.
Yeah, it feels weird, doesn't it? Especially when you're starting out, right? So I know I just started, basically 7 or 8 years ago, whatever it is, 10 years ago, and it's amazing how quickly you become part of different crowds, right? If you spend any time working on your craft whatsoever, then you get absorbed. I don't know if you can hear any of that.
I heard that. What was that?
So I have a metal roof. And as we started this interview, Noah in his ark, I think, is about to drift by because there's so much rain coming down. So we're just going to work through audio problems, visual problems.
My camera sucks. You got the apocalypse happening. Here's a cat. Probably
Welcome to recording podcasts, right? So more hats off to Mike Rowe and Joe Rogan and all the people that can do this well. All right. That's not us. But yeah, it's amazing when you get into these small circles, how quickly you can become parts of groups. And then you start to follow other photographers that you haven't met and you admire their work. And then you meet them and you're like, oh, you're just a regular person. Yeah. But we all kind of drift in and out of these circles. And I know I've been following your work for years. And so when I saw you start to pop up in the Artist Forge, I was stoked I was cool. Like, why would Nina's hanging out with us? Like, she's sitting at this table, like she's at the cool kids table. We're just kind of like the little art nerds over here. So it's great to have you here. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, I appreciate it. Well, it's like Nicole, I've always thought she was so awesome, and Becca, and I knew your work, and I didn't know Kat. She's her work is so good, and everybody on the panel, and it's just like, wow, like, I've been kind of out of it for a while because COVID happened, and I work, I'm in the corporate world, and so I was about to do this show, and it was all about.
We've got a secondary guest.
That's Elliot.
Your cat. Elliot wants you to pay attention to him.
He's just like, hey. Yeah, I was supposed to do the show all about breaking male stereotypes. And that was supposed to happen. And I'm trying to set up, I always kid, I was like, y'all are the hardest to get booked. But right before that, I did a show, it was all women 40 and older, and they were like, come on, let's do it. And, easy to book them, then try to get, it was like herding cats trying to get the men.
We're a weird breed, especially when it comes to photography. We can be photographers, but it's really hard and I throw normal guys, in front of the camera. It's ingrained in us. And I'm like you, I'm trying to break that. I'm trying to bring my buddies in. I'm trying to make everybody look good.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's a struggle for sure.
It's tough getting men in your port. It really is. Finding men comfortable with modeling is definitely a challenge. Then COVID hit, and I was like, I can't, I can't really shoot for the show. And then we were like, oh, well, we can just do a show of like a retrospective and pull in stuff. We ended up doing that. We couldn't even have a reception or anything. But like, that was just like when everything just went, well, hello, sir. That's when everything just went and kind of blew up. And I've done like a couple of things since then, but I really haven't been a photographer during this pandemic.
That's really interesting to me, because it just seems like you're producing work. I don't know if you're just re-releasing it or I'm seeing it for the first time, because I don't know your entire catalog, but it just seems like you're putting out it's extraordinarily gorgeous work. But I don't know if you're doing it regularly or if it's older stuff you're bringing out of the archives. It doesn't matter. I think the fact is that you're putting out work that makes people think and stop and understand story a little bit better. And that's been the thing that I really enjoy about looking at your stuff, is that there's a lot of photographers. There's probably half as many storytellers, half as many good storytellers.
Right.
And then there's the exceptional ones. And the good and exceptional, that group kind of shifts around. But I've always looked at your work as having so much story to it and so much thought. It's really provoking when you look at it. And, we've done it clearly on the Artist Forge. When we're looking at your stuff, we sit and we talk about it and we dissect it because there's so much to look at. Do you pull from that? Do you say, all right, I'm going to put every little bit of detail in here? Or is it just more natural than that and it just kind of flows as you're in the moment? How does your process work with specific concepts? Are you trying to work out every detail, or do you just kind of go with it?
It depends. So to answer your first question, I've been kind of revisiting my archives a lot lately, and reworking old work, or stuff that maybe people haven't seen before, like the piece that's behind me. That went in that show in November, and that's an entirely new mixed media piece where I didn't usually like go quite as heavy on the paint, and I really went heavy on that. That one also, that's another one that was in that show. So I have a heart murmur and kind of like issues with my heart. So I've had to be really careful about COVID, and haven't gotten it yet. So that's why I've been extra. Sure. And then just working so much, hadn't really had the time. But to the other question, it goes both ways. It's so somebody that I've always looked up to the process was Helmut Newton.
Sure. I've got a coffee table book this big on my coffee table of all his, mainly his nude work, and it's gorgeous. Right.
And he talked about how he would lay down and take a nap, and kind of, you remember that in the documentary, and he would say, he'd lay down and kind of rest his eyes, and he would start to envision and see the shot. And that's kind of how I relate to that. Not that I'm ever going to be as good as him, but that's kind of how I relate to him in that way. And that's kind of how I work. So I'll set up to, a shoot with someone, and I start looking at them and kind of talking to them, get to know them. I'll go through their portfolio, if I don't already have a concept that I've sought them out for, that's when I kind of start to develop like, what's the story for this person? And then slowly the picture starts coming in my mind. And like, I would say 9 times out of 10, before I'm going to do a shoot, I already know the shot before it even happens. Like, I already know the shot that I'm going to get for the shoot. I already have it completely set up in my mind, and everything else is just bonus and working towards getting that shot. Like, I'd say probably 9 times out of 10 for everything I've ever done. And
now,
it's
do you get the shot, or do you find that you wander away from it?
Most of the time it ends up being the shot. Like,
Really?
I have this such a clear, like, it's weird. Like, I have this, I'm very visual, and I have like a, like, I can close my eyes and literally see things in front of me like a movie, which is why I find it weird that some people can't see like pictures in their brain. But I mean, it is as clear to me as if I'm looking at it in life. And it's almost like I end up recreating this vision. And sometimes it doesn't come. And then it's more like, if it doesn't come, it doesn't come. And I don't try and force it. And then kind of working with the person, things will happen. Sometimes I'll work with really creative models, and they'll say, hey, I've got this great idea. And then all of a sudden, the movie and, the vision, it comes. And it literally is like, I always say, it's like I have this vision and I just see it. And then the whole thing is like, I've actually had shoots where I have taken 10 pictures and I've been like, well, we're done. We'll keep going, but I've already got the shot. But yeah, it's pretty intentional most of the time.
I'm so jealous of people that can do that. For me, as visually stimulated as I am, I have a really difficult time forming that vision in my head. It's more of like a charcoal sketch than anything. And I kind of know how components are going to go together. And then I get in there, and then it takes this hard right turn. And
That's
I
cool,
wind up.
Though. I like that. Spontaneity.
I've just learned to work with it. And I just know that that's part of the process, that if I try to control things too much, then I get wrapped up in not creating what I see instead of being in that flow of just pure creativity. So it always fascinates me when, Parker Pfister is very similar in so far as he can see the vision and make that image. And, there's several friends of mine that can see it and make the image. And I'm like, I see it. I'm going to go way over here and do something, completely different. I'm fascinated by people that can see that clearly, because it's a skill that's lost to me.
Totally I've just been super. I was a very imaginative child, and I had like make believe. I had a whole world that would, and it kind of carried on. But I tell you, I've been struggling for the vision for a long time, and that's kind of what's kept me from picking up my camera. Because I would sit there and go, oh, come on, let's see it. And I haven't been able to see it quite as much as I have. So, and I think part of that is I didn't realize how important social interaction was to my creative process, and actually being around people, and had played such a big part in my creativity. I'm kind of like what do they call it? An ambivert, where it's an introverted extrovert. Mm-hmm. You'll play hell getting me out of this house, but once I'm out and around people, I'm just like, I'm in my element, and I didn't realize how much I was almost like being a vampire with all the people that I was around, and that I was really pulling from them and from all these interactions, all the stuff that I've created. And so when it was gone, it's almost like the source is gone. Where's my creativity?
You're located, are you in Tennessee?
Nashville.
You are in Nashville. Yeah. That's what I thought. How was Nashville during COVID? I mean, I know it's such a creative town, right? And you said that you have to really protect your health. Yeah. But did you find Nashville didn't care? Nashville was wild through the whole thing. Like, really? Yeah. It really didn't. I would say during that one initial shutdown, there was even bars that were like,
Yeah,
it ain't
no.
gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, I
They were
was
going
wondering
against the regulations.
because you work a lot, you work predominantly with models, right?
Mhm.
And self-portraits and things like
Yeah.
that. I was just curious as to in those creator communities in Nashville, if everybody kind of took the same approach and, you know, retreated into the box like we all did. And then as you start to come out, do you feel like there's been this wave of pent up creativity, or has it been the struggle to get back into it? Because I see everything. I
Yeah.
struggled, but I feel like it's starting to come back, that people are starting to work together a little bit more, collaborate a little bit more, create, but it's still this real kind of touchy feely, you know, let's see what tomorrow brings sort of attitude.
Yeah. I'm struggling. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. Even just with I'm just trying to get back into peopling.
Yeah.
You know, and just being around people. I just started another creative project. I got asked to come in as a creative director for a film, independent film, to possibly not star, but be in it, act, and then help the creative side of it. And,
Wow.
you know, it was like the day came for the first, and I'm just like, oh, I got to do this. You got to do this. You got to leave your house. Go to the car, go to you've been crying that you're not creating and you're not around people. And now you're like, I can't do it, you know? But,
But
a
you
little
have
bit,
your
we
fingers.
got talking and the creative were like, and bouncing ideas off each other. And I was like, oh, this is what this was like. I remember this.
Feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
it surprises me mainly because you have you're so multidimensional, right? Model, photographer, activist, filmmaker, actor, actress.
Right.
Right. You've got all of this stuff that you like to do. We talk a lot about how we define ourselves. I'm a
Mhm.
photographer, or I'm a model, or I'm an artist, or whatever. As you do so much, how would you define yourself? Like,
I just say
where's the
artist.
passion lie? Is
Yeah.
it in corporate insurance? Is it?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That just pays the bills. That pays for that high Nashville tax that I just got the bill for today. You owe more on your mortgage because your taxes are terribly high. Yeah, that's what that does, but that's not where the heart. Because I mean, I'm very grateful for my job and I'm good at doing, you know, that kind of thing. But
Sure.
that's not what makes me smile or gets my heart going pitter pat. It's art in all the varying forms that does it for me. I so I was glad I have another show coming up in November because, you know, my other love is horses.
Mhm.
And I rescued my current horse. He's a rescue, and I adopted him from from this place called Hickory Hill Farms. And I'm actually going to photograph all horses. I feel like, okay,
Oh
you
wow.
can motivate yourself to get out around horses, but I want to take it, like, I don't want to just take pictures of horses. I've done that. I want to do more on, like, just more creative, probably double exposures, long exposures, more what's the word I'm looking for? I'm having a brain fart. Ah! Um Surreal kind of look. Yeah, like more
Sure.
along the lines of surrealism instead of realism. A lot of when I photograph horses, I kind of I do it a little bit differently than most people do, because I light my horses like I would light a person,
Right.
or I photograph a horse as I would photograph a human being, and try to bring out like a soul. And this isn't just here's a horse out in the field. You know,
Right.
there's I'll sit with a horse in their stall for an hour, 2 hours, just watching them move and following them, so that I could catch something that would hopefully draw like some emotion and get or create some feeling, instead of, oh, that's a horse, you know. And so I wanted to kind of go along that lines a little bit, but expand on it a little bit more and go to more to the surreal. Uh, But it's all going to be for these rescued horses. I'm photographing all rescued horses. I'm really excited about it. They're going to be the ones that are being fostered, ones that have already been adopted, and then I'm going to donate some proceeds from the show to the rescue.
That's amazing. Now, I was just looking through as we were talking, looking through your Instagram, and I was going to throw a picture up here, but I'll just describe it to you because it's so in line with like noir portraiture. You've got this horse, and it almost looks like you've got a rim light coming from behind, coming through its mane, and then there's almost like a slant of hard light across his eyes, and it's very fashiony for a horse. And that I haven't seen images like that of horses. Is that what you're talking about in terms of humanizing them? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Humanizing them. Guys, kind of, what is it? Anthropomorphizing. Yeah. I just say it's
an easy one.
But yeah, like, because, they're horses that's it's been done. And I was trying to think, like, what can I do to make that a little bit different? How can I get, see that a little different? And believe it or not, like I said, the picture you're probably talking about, because the vast majority of my photos of horses aren't even lit with strobes. I'm in a stall with one window light and hand holding the camera, sometimes at really slower shutter speeds, and it's just moving slow and like following them and letting them be them, and let them forget about that you're in the stall with them, because we'll be in like these little pretty closed in areas. Sure. And I'll be in the corner and probably sitting in horse poop for like an hour. Be like, ignore me.
Now, did you grow up with horses? Did you grow up with horses?
Yeah, well, I loved them since I was a little girl, but I grew up really, really poor. And so I had horses in my mind constantly. I dreamed of horses and when I was little, I pretended I was a horse. I think I was a horse for probably a month. And my mom was like, you gotta stop. You're not a horse. I am.
Identified as a horse.
And I would draw them, like, and check out every book in the library, just obsessed. And I got my first horse when I was 31. So I kind of made my childhood dream come true. And oh my gosh, when you're bit by that bug, you can forget about it. You lose brain cells. It's worse than doing drugs. Like, just common sense.
More expensive too.
Oh my God. Yes, they're so expensive. Again, the day job. Gotta.
So I actually want to talk about that. Not necessarily about your job itself, but there's a lot of artists that think, oh, I have to give everything up in order to be an artist, right? I have to give up my day job, and I have to get a studio, and I have to follow this, and I have to do that. You clearly balance both really well.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. How do you find that balance between corporate demands, because I know what they were like, I lived that life, and the artistic life where you're like, you get this bolt of creativity and you want to get into it, but you might be in a meeting about TPS reports? So how do you balance the creative side of your life with the corporate side?
I always say that if you want to do something, you will find a way. Otherwise, you will find an excuse. And so if you want to do it, if you want to be an artist, but you got bills to pay, and you'll find a way. And it's like, well, do you want to just lay on your couch and relax, or get out, pick up your camera and get out and shoot something, or paint, or do whatever? Like, it makes me very busy, and and it's a crunch, you're squeezing in all this stuff on your weekends. You're, collaborating with people who are cool with coming over at 9:00 at night to do a shoot. You're squeezing it in every little nook and cranny, and you're daydreaming about it while you're working, and just basically scheduling it in every moment you can. I do think that getting out of the habit of doing that is part of what's making me have such a hard time getting myself back in there. Is once you get out of the habit of like, no, you're going to create, you're going to schedule this time, and you're going to do it, it's kind of like working out, like making the time to exercise. And you can be great and super fit and going and working out however many days a week, and then suddenly you stop, and then it's like that much harder to get back into it. It's the same with that. It's like making it more of a habit, and then like really just scheduling time to do it. But I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard. I mean, when you're gonna not have time to just chill, which is very important, but you just won't have that much time to do that, because if you're like it's gonna be crazy here. I'm gonna have the show in November here soon, because all the horses are finally shedding out and starting, and everything's getting green. So I'm going to be able to start shooting. It's going to be my entire weekend. Yeah. It's going to be, editing and stuff all throughout. Like I'll be work all day. And I actually work 2 jobs. So I'll be working all day job in my little part-time job, then editing throughout the night, and then trying to get get whatever other eat, maybe, those kind of things in. But I mean, when you love something and it's like important to you, like I said, you'll either find you just find a way.
Yeah, I like that. Find a way or find an excuse. Right?
Huh?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I like that saying, that find a way, or you're either gonna find a way or you're gonna find an excuse. Yeah. And it's always interesting to me, because I think you're absolutely right. I find that some people get into a profession because they can do it, and they feel like they, clock in 9 to 5 as a photographer, and they're going to do this amount of shoots. And it's great to have a routine. But when you are balancing, whether it's a job or family or friends, or, it's, if you start to let the creativity slip, then it starts to become a memory that's further and further away of what you used to do, right? Like you said, it's muscles, it's habits. And once you fall out of that, it's hard to get back on that treadmill, man. You don't have the cardio again. And, you have to work those muscles over and over and over. It is a diminished skill if you leave it for long enough. And I found
that's what I'm struggling with right now. Because I've got to start shooting, and I'm not gonna lie, like there is a tiny part of me that's kind of dreading it a little bit. As much as I want to, I just know like how hard it's going to be. But then I also, but see, because you're not in there with the camera and getting to the exciting part, the planning and getting all the booking, the going to the different farms and getting all that set up. That's always that's daunting. Like, oh God, now I gotta start planning the weekends and contacting this barn and contacting this horse person and this and trying to get times and mesh. But once you're it's just when back to the exercising metaphor, I hate working out. Like I hate it. I do it every day and I hate it, but I love how I feel. So I pout like a child. I'm gonna do my stupid working out for my stupid mental health. I hate this. And then after I'm done, I'm like, I'm so glad I did that.
I feel great. I'm great.
And then tomorrow, I'm gonna do the same thing again. I'm gonna throw an absolute temper tantrum like a child and then pick the weights up and go.
I think it's perfect. I think you're not alone in a lot of that, and I've found the same thing, that it's, when shoots slow down for one reason or another, either you're burnt out or, there's a pandemic or, things beyond your control. You find that it gave me at least a little bit of breathing room, to where I said, okay, well, I can take a little bit of time off, because everybody's taking time off.
Right.
And that was a dangerous trap to fall into. Yeah. Because, well, I kept moving, and I pivoted, and I was doing some video editing and finding ways to stay kind of using my tools, right? I wasn't shooting a lot of clients, but I was finding ways to use the tools. And I got to tell you, once getting back into the client flow is difficult, right? Or, you shooting for shows, and, you know, are you doing this all yourself? Do you have a team? Do you have someone that can do booking
It's
for
all
you?
me.
Yeah, it's all
I'm
you.
gonna hope to get some friends to come shape. So horses are horses. I'm gonna hope to get like a friend who knows horses to come along with me to basically shake a treat bag or shake something to try and catch attention.
Right.
So I might get somebody to come along with that, but other than that, no, I'm a one woman show.
Yeah.
Now I will sometimes put a call out for people who want to shadow me, because I get a lot of people asking if they, you know, to learn, especially like I love doing that. I like teaching. I teach photography, or I did teach photography before the pandemic. Pandemic. That was a great slip. I'm not even drinking. The pandemic. But I used to teach photography too, and I love teaching. So I, as long as the person that I'm photographing is cool with it, I'll let people come and assist just so they can learn, and I'll talk through what I'm doing. But usually I work a lot alone,
Yeah.
especially because a lot of the work I do, I don't use models. I always say I photograph a lot of civilians, and the more people that are around them, the more uncomfortable they tend to get. So and especially because like when I did my series Machisma, I'm photographing a lot of women with no shirt on that aren't models. Like the majority of, like, so many of the women I photographed for that, they were not models. And then there was a lot of them were abuse survivors, and when to pull from the depths of them, we would talk about like things that they've overcome in their life. And I would say, if you could be in front of so and so, and you wanted to show them what you overcome, show me that now. Hit that pose now. Show me your strength, because I was trying to pull strength out of these vulnerable places to tell their story of triumph, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And you can't have a team or any kind of, when you're doing something like that, it's one-on-ones, way more, it's more intimate, and they can feel more comfortable and let go a lot more in that scenario.
I know that the Machisma set that you put together, I was looking at the few photos that you had on the website and reading the story about it, and it's such a phenomenal. Was that just a personal project? Was that something that you had been working on for a really long time? Did it come to you very quickly? I think it's such a powerful piece to look at, and this is why I was going on about story at the beginning. In all of these images and all these black and white images that I'm looking at, there is so much story to each one of them, because of the expression, because of the lighting, because of the wardrobe that they have, or lack of wardrobe, right? And everybody's topless, and it's gorgeous work. And you're not looking at nudity, you're looking at these women and their faces and their expressions, and I'm wondering what it is that it's all about.
Right.
Talk a little bit more about kind of that whole concept, because I know you do so much activism, and you were just talking about, some of the women that you've worked with in the past. Is this all tied into, your activism, or wanting to bring social issues to light? Like, how does this all tie in? Do you focus on that, or is it just something that you have to get out? Like, it's just part of you that you have to express?
I always say that series became a self-portrait. And so, as you pointed out, I do self-portraits. Well, and when I first picked up my camera, all I did was self-portraits. And I have my friend Amy, who is the main person who's got the swagger and the cigarette.
With the cigarette.
Yeah. She had got that short haircut.
That's
and
amazing.
I had never photographed another person before. I'd only photographed myself. Yeah. And I'm being attacked. Hi. That session was the first time I've ever photographed another person.
Wow.
And and I knew I wanted to do something like androgynous. That's how it started. Like, because she had just gotten that pixie cut, and she has such real sharp features, and I was kind of thinking like, wow, we could really play into that, and let's get in. And all this is like, that thing happened where this picture came in my head, and I am being like, he is literally hanging from my head. so we got that swagger, in that picture. And I said, whoa, what if I did a whole series of these? I was like, I love this. And I really liked photographing another person. I was like, I want to keep doing this. What if I do a whole series of these? So then I was thinking, well, I could do them all. And I was like, I could do all of everyone kind of more on in their masculine energy. Because, and it's just started to evolve. And when I would try and pull like strength from people, I always sat and I talked to people before I photographed them. And over and over again, when I was asking people to think about it, something that they've overcome, I didn't even think it was going to go anywhere with the unfortunate sexual assault. But when, like, what is it, like 1 in 5 women have been a victim of that, or something like that. It's a lot. It is a whole lot.
Yeah, it's staggering.
I don't want to give wrong statistics, but a lot. You're going to end up running into that when you're, I think I photographed, it was over 30 people for this. And suddenly, over and over again, that was what they overcome. And I remember I'm getting goosebumps. One of the people that I photographed, and I said, if you could stand, it was that moment of like the first one who was a survivor. And I said, well, if you could stand up to them right now, show me that. And I swear her shoulders went back and her chin went up and her fist just clenched and kind of went. And I was like, oh my God. And I almost forgot to snap. And I'm like, oh, take the picture. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. And these women would start, like at the beginning of the session, they would be nervous and they'd be giggling. And the more that I would talk to them, and like, I'm like, pull from the strength. You're a queen. You're a boss. You're this. If you could ever think of sometime when you felt small, and let's bash that person. Like show them now. Let's show who you are. And so it kept going back to that theme, and there were so many people that were survivors. And so I actually got up with an organization and I decided, well, I'm gonna start raising awareness about this, and then I'm going to raise money for survivors. And so the Tennessee Coalition of Domestic and Sexual Violence, I believe that's the name. It's a long one. Ended up communicating with them and having the proceeds to donate to them. Then the Tennessean wrote it up, and I did an artist talk, and we brought some of the survivors up, and it became like this whole like bring awareness. And that was like my first step into using art for activism. And I've given like lots of talks about using your work as your voice and to tell people's stories, to give voice to the voiceless and tell people's stories since then. But that was really like from never photographing another person before and having just this one little picture of an idea in my mind to photographing over 30 women, including my grandmother and my mother, both posed for me. And like help, like almost like each session was almost like a therapy session of like talking about how they've overcome their strength. And and a lot of them, they told me afterwards, like it made them feel stronger, and they kind of felt more powerful throughout the session. And it was very cathartic for a lot of them. But it kind of like, I feel like I'm talking so much. I'm sorry. I guess that's the point of this.
The point.
It was my step into, well, gosh, you know, I could say so much. You really could. You can bring to light so many things that people don't talk about, you know. I always say, like, you know, people can ignore the news, you know, they can ignore, you know, posts that people make, but it's easier to sneak a piece of art, or it's easier to sneak activism and social awareness in through art, whether it be photography, painting, music, movies. All the art will bring voice to people and sneak it in so much more easily than the news and other forms, because, like, you know, you you think you're just checking out this piece of art, and the next thing you know, you're being educated about something. Somebody's bringing awareness to something that you might not have ever even known was a problem. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and it truly is. I mean, we're so bombarded with, you need to think this way. Here's the headline. Here's the Instagram post. You need to think like this. Here's the meme that sums up exactly what you're supposed to think like. And then when we see art that tells a story, or that has some depth to it, or that keeps us engaged just visually without knowing the story, without reading a blurb or being told what to think, that interpretation really does foster good discussion, because you're bringing two people, forget about what they believe in the rest of their life. Like, they're all able to look at and appreciate the same image and interpret it a different way. They might see parts of themselves. They may see parts of a family member or a loved one or a friend. And to be able to relate that to their life is going to be different for everyone. But that's what I love about seeing a lot of your work. And I mentioned it before that, you know, we all on the Artist Forge, we were all getting together and we all saw different stuff in what you were trying to say, right? And that's the wonderful part of all of this. Now, you do a lot of these projects, and, you know, you were talking about mixed media at the very beginning, and I'll get into that in a minute. But, you know, individually, you've got photography, you've got film, you know, you've got all these things. And I wanted to talk to you while we're talking about Machisma, My Body Is Not Obscene.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I wanted to talk about that. And I didn't know if that was a project that got delayed because of COVID, or if it's something that
actually happened.
You were talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that actually was pre-COVID. That had gone on for a long time, and the reason that even happened, so that took a long time to shoot, because, you know, you've got both of us working and having the director and everybody involved. We're kind of having personal projects and work and life, and, you know, so it took a really long time to put that movie together. But the reason it started was because when you know, as you know, I started off as a model. And when I do a lot of art nudes, and I am a survivor, trigger warning, of child pornography. So the very fact that I started doing nude modeling was a huge deal, because that was something done to me in a negative way when I was like only 11 years old. And being a model and being a nude model in particular kind of gave me back control over my body, because this was all happening because I said so. I want this to happen. This is, you know, this is something I'm expressing. And so I was doing all this nude modeling, and every time I would post, I'd have to put censorship, you know, and I started censoring things of My Body Is Not Obscene, because there was, like, during the time when, like, Facebook was allowing this post of that poor person getting beheaded, and it was all over everywhere. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah.
And, like, no matter how many times you would report it, they weren't taking it down, and they were like, so it's like all this violence. My God, I saw one where this woman was literally had a bucket full of puppies and was chucking them one by one into a river. And I kept reporting it, and they were like, no, we're not taking that down because that's showing that this happened. And it's, you know what I mean? Like the person who abused the animal didn't post it. It was the person like, I'm bringing awareness that this happened. So they wouldn't take it down. So I can see this, people dying, puppies dying. So like in my in my Facebook memories today, I was like, I literally just watched a lady take a poop in an aisle of a grocery store on like that. They showed the surveillance, and I was like, and that was okay, but titties bad.
Oh my God, you're so right. Everything it's become so strange and surreal about what's allowed and what's not. And that's I don't know if we have enough hard drive space to record my thoughts on that.
Same, but that's what Jason was like, oh, we need to make a documentary about this. And that's where that came from. And again, it's just like, we talked back to having like a clear idea and things getting while like, just like Machisma, I didn't know what Machisma was going to be. I did have the clear idea of the shot I wanted to get, but I had no idea that would end up being the big deal that it ended up being, and like that I'd have a solo show that the Tennessean would rank that thing like one of the top 7 cultural events of the block, and an art show, and the like survivors are coming out and we're doing art talks, and like, holy crap, that's kind of the same thing with this movie. It just evolved.
Well, that's the beautiful part of it, right? And this is the thing that I love about learning about artist projects, and especially the personal projects, is that they all start from, most of them, I should say, start from something that happened to the artist. Like, oh, I took a shot of Amy, or I took, my dad to the doctor because he's having issues, and that raised my awareness about other older dads with issues. And and you do it because you're interested in it, and it gives you some level of spark or passion. And then you quickly realize, and I think this is where we sell ourselves short as artists, is that we don't realize the power of shared experience, and that all of us, regardless of what we believe, are a lot more similar than we like to say.
You're 100% right.
When we have this shared experience and we can relate to the story that the photographer or the artist or the sculptor or the writer is telling, that it allows for a different type of dialogue, and it puts all that other stuff to the side. And I love that you've been able to do that, to raise that awareness across all of these different personal projects. And it all starts with just something you're interested in, rather than, all right, how do I market this? How do I get this to be, a specific group of people that I can target? The way that we're all taught to market everything these days and turn ourselves into a brand, you're doing something that comes straight from heart. And I think that is what translates so well in the work, and that, brings people along with it. It's phenomenal storytelling. And throughout history, that's been some of the most powerful work, right? I can take a self-portrait of me in a golden wheat field at sunset, and there's 10 billion pictures of golden wheat fields at sunset. But I don't see a lot of pictures like yours. And those are the ones that catch your eye, right? We're so inundated with all this stuff. We're looking for something new and unique. But when we can relate to it, it becomes even more powerful.
Right. That's important. That's what, like, that's a thing, is I like that. I like to make people feel seen. And so that is like, so my show Goals, and I did, it's like, I was thinking, I struggle. I mean, I started modeling at 36. I'm 47 years old, and I was still,
stop. Really?
Yeah. Wow. 47 and a freaking half almost now. And so aging has always been, as a woman, that society is really hard on women. Men age, you know, they're like, they get more distinguished with age, and for women, they just sell us a bunch of skincare. And, you know, if you like, you know, I was thinking of all the posters that I had when on the wall when I was a kid, you know, it's like, I didn't have any of a woman of age that I was like, she's a badass.
Right.
You know, I mean, it was like they were all younger, all the, you know, like Madonna and all young, all the goals. Like if you're like, that's my goal. I didn't have anybody 47, 50, 60 that I was going, that I would have put up on a wall and said, that's goals. I want to be that. And so I was like, well, that needs to change, because, you know, representation is everything. And I just, women of a certain age are very much underrepresented in as far as being beautiful and desirable and sexy. They're like, when they're hiring, when you're getting hired as a model over a certain age, most of you are like, I'm going to do the next AARP commercial, or
Right.
Depends, or you know, this new hormonal treatment or whatever. You know, you're somebody's grandmother,
Right.
somebody's mother, but are you the siren? Are you the object of desire? You know, kind of like Mrs. Robinson. That was a good one. You know, she is like this young guy, the older lady, hot. You know, but that's what I wanted. I wanted women. I wanted to give, like, I pictured like a whole room of the show, like posters. And I was like, I'm going to plaster an entire gallery of posters of all these women, and they're going to be goals. It's like kind of envisioning it like if it was a young girl's bedroom with nothing but these older women plastered all over it. And that was a lot of fun. So
it's such a phenomenal campaign to look at, because you know, the marketer in me immediately sees advertising copy and taglines, and you know, in each one of these images, because it looks like a poster, because it's very clear that, you know, this is telling a story about who the person is, or what they're feeling, or what their desires are, right? And there's, you know, women with flying V guitars, and it's fantastic, right? But you can almost hear the taglines that go along with it, like, you know, defy your age.
Whatever. That was on purpose. I shot every last one of them to look like something that came out of a different ad or a different code. And so if you notice, they're all none of it's like, as a whole, they kind of flow together, but they are like so individually shot. This could be a shoe ad. This could be a hair ad. This could be this ad. This is, you know, here's somebody wearing Western wear that could be like, you know, and it was all intentionally like, can I make very, very, very different pieces, but somehow make this all cohesive and blend into a show? And so, yeah, I did definitely, it was intention. Like each of them was kind of shot like an ad.
It's gorgeous. And again, I'll tell the listeners, like, go to ninacovington.net and just look through some of these campaigns. If you're struggling with story, take a look at what Nina's doing, because this is how it should be done, right? This is how we express ourselves. This is how we bring people into the art form. This is how we reach younger people. And I mean, you know, with this whole campaign, did you ever figure out with yourself, right? So starting modeling relatively late in life, and you know, being a photographer after that, is, do you find yourself thinking about, like, what would you tell that 11-year-old? What would you tell that 12-year-old?
Oh gosh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, each one of my people, I interviewed everyone, in their interview was up against the by their portrait, and part of it was, what would you go back and tell your younger self? And yeah, I think about that a lot, especially considering what I come from, you know, in my past, and just to be like, just, you know, I used to want to be a model so bad, but I little short, you know, thing. And but just, yeah, I would definitely just be like, hang in there. Everything, you know, you're gonna be you're going to be a badass when you grow up, and you're going to do all sorts of really cool things, and you're going to make other people feel better about themselves. But I, you know, and I actually did a piece. I had another show called Rise, and it was literally like taking people through my healing journey of self. And it started with a picture of me as a child, and it's like, and there was poetry that I wrote for each one. And with that one, it was wait for me. So I was telling young me, you know, wait for me, because I'm, you know, and so that's what I would say is just wait, hang in there. I know everything's horrible right now, but one day there's gonna some badasseries coming in your future. You're not even gonna believe.
Yeah, it's so, you know, that looking back in retrospect and understanding where you came from and all those experiences that led up to being the badass that you are, right? It's really hard to get that across to a young person, except for the fact that we're still here and we can say, don't worry, you're going to survive, you're going to make
You're
it.
gonna do it. Yeah.
And here's all the things that you can do. Being able to show them and at least stimulate their imagination through some of these things, right? You can be a 50-year-old woman as a rock star. You can be a 70-year-old woman and have an amazing, you know, modeling career. You can do all of these things. And all you need is someone to look at to be like, yep, that's attainable. That's attainable. That's
Representation is everything. And that people, you know, that's important, is like more people, like the more people that get out there and show you can do this and you can do this, and people can, and more people that are there that people can see themselves in, helps people to visualize that for themselves. And you know what I mean? You're like, okay, you know, when you're in the middle of all the crap, like if somebody could tell a kid, you know, I mean, we were so poor, we ate food out of dumpsters. I'm not going to lie, Matt, we were poor. If somebody would, you know, tell me, well, you're going to be living in Nashville, have a car, have a nice job, you're doing it all on your own, money in the bank, you know, you've created art, you know, like, if I could have seen someone like me, maybe to look up to, it would have seemed a lot less daunting. So I think, and I really do think, like, some people are like, I can't believe you tell all the stuff that's happened to you, but like, it's important. It's important too, because if people need to hear the come up stories, so they can know that that can happen to them too. And I mean, I'm not famous, and I'm not, you know, but I'm more than I ever thought that I would be, you know. And I feel like, and I, you know, even though I'm not wealthy, like, I feel like I've touched people, and I feel like I've made a difference, even if it was just like a small handful of people, and that's worth way more than money, you know. And I hope that my art will, you know, when I'm gone, I really hope that the internet, they say it's forever. I hope so. And I hope, like, when I'm long gone or whatever, that maybe somebody might run across a picture, you know, that I took, that might make them feel better about them. Or maybe they might hear, like, you know, this here, you know what I mean? Or maybe I photograph somebody who, like, and tell their story, and somebody's inspired by them. More importantly, I mean, I'm just a regular person, but, like, I don't know. I'm always like blown away by the people that I photograph and the things that they've overcome and how incredible they are. And it's like, I want to talk about you. It's not about me. But I don't know. Just try to make a difference, like, is the only thing that's ever really mattered to me, even if it's just a small one.
That's the wonderful part about seeing yourself as a storyteller, is that it's not only telling your own story so that people can relate to it, it's helping other people that don't necessarily have the means to tell their stories. Again, it comes back to that shared experience. If you talk to any one of those women in the Goals campaign or in Machisma, right? Everybody's got their own unique story, but there are these shared experiences. And collectively, we start to now draw from each other and being able to see that represented beautifully, right? Visually, through movement, through facial expression, right? Through lighting. You've got an incredibly edgy lighting voice, right?
Thank you. I only use one light ever.
Yeah, and I'm a big one light shooter, which
I noticed that. That's why I brought that up, because you're a one light fan as well.
Yeah, I'm lazy, right? And I think it looks let's call it what it is. But I think I'm drawn to mental health issues. I'm drawn to drama.
Yes, I noticed that.
I'm drawn to things that help people tell their story and not feel alone, right? Because I felt alone for so many years.
Right.
Just even though I had friends and family around me, I felt alone. And I think there's a lot of people that struggle with things like that. And you mentioned it a while ago. If you can make someone feel seen and heard and not so isolated or alone in what is going on in their head, there's only good things that can come from that. And so I think it's insanely important that for any photographer or artist that is connecting with people at that level, that there's a responsibility and an obligation to tell their story as honestly and openly as you can, through whatever medium, because giving them that platform to tell their story not only is going to help them, it's going to help countless other people. You said, it's exponential effects. Right? One person sees that, feels good, opens a door for another person. That person does, one thing after another. And I love how this seems to be the thread that weaves through a lot of your work.
Oh, absolutely.
Is telling people's stories. So with that, and as I was talking about the one light stuff, it does have a little bit of an edge to it, right? And I know that it's a certain style that resonates with a lot of people, and you capture it really, really well. So is that something that you like to add that little bit of drama, or are you just lazy like me and just don't want to set up two lights? Yeah, both.
Well, I love Rembrandt's one of my favorite artists, and so I love. And before I ever even thought about any kind of photography, and the Rembrandt light and his use of shadow, and it's like his shadow was just as much a part of his work as the light. And I feel like that's like the same with like people, like our darkness and all the little hidey bits are so much or what makes us who we are, right? And we've got that part that's shown, that everybody sees, and then the part that everybody doesn't see, and the part that's underlying the parts that people don't see are every bit of as important, maybe even more important than the part you see. So I love shadow. I love shadow. And so it's like, if you look at his work and you just look in the shadows and how he allowed the shadows to creep in and to only allow this part of this to show and this part of this to show. And that, like, that's where it's at, so it's a lot of this because I just love shadow. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm a little, I'm kind of a dark kind of person. Like I have like that, I'm very cheerful, whatever, but I also have like my dark side. I like scary stuff. And my gallows humor is on point. I've been great during this pandemic, but so like I have a darkness to me, but I also have this bubbly side, and it's just that dichotomy. I like that.
It's balance, man. Like we were talking about corporate and art, light and shadow, yin yang, right? So you found this wonderful balance. And it just seems to be, from talking to you now, knowing what I know of you online and our interactions previously, like there seems to be just a wonderful piece about you, and that you've got this balance. Now, I could be way off. It could be complete bananas chaos as soon as you shut this podcast off. But there seems to be a wonderful balance and acceptance of life as it is, and that that I see a lot of this in your work, whether it's the long exposure stuff, whether it's your pet portraits, whether it's the machisma stuff, right? There seems to be this feeling like I'm in the room with you at those moments. And I immediately understand where you are. But it's not like, wow, she's kind of creepy. Like everything is, wow, that's beautiful. That's dark. Let me look at this for hours and try to analyze it. And that's really hard to do, especially when it comes to light. A lot of people look at light and be like, there's not enough, there's too much shadow. Keep adding light. Let's add a third. Let's add a fourth. Let's do reflector.
And I think that's awesome, but I don't. And I actually had to do that for some of the stuff for my goals, because I was like, I can't shoot everything with the same light. I can't do my one light thing because, you know, a lot of the stuff is like lights everywhere. That is hard for me. Just because I'm just like, everything's so exposed, you know, like nothing's hiding. It's just, it's all out there. But but I love it. I love that really slick, you know, that like with the fashion photography. I mean, because they have to. I mean, you're showing the clothes. You can't hide half the clothes in shadow. And so I really love that. But it's, I was honest, it's kind of intimidating to me, all that light showing everything.
Meanwhile, like, there's people naked in front of your lens. I don't want to show it all. Doesn't make sense. So, you know, thinking about all of that and looking at all of these different techniques that you use, right? You're doing long exposure stuff. You're kind of in advertising. You're doing dark black and white, very, you know, F11, everything's in focus. Everything's very crispy. Like you're all over the place. And I love that because it shows such a curious voice. Right. Yeah. And it's looking at your body of work. It's very cohesive. Now, is there a place that you settle into? You're like, I'm home. I got one light and, you know, a self-portrait, or I'm, you know, with a certain type of person. Where's your comfort zone? I know that you're moving into this mixed media stuff. Where do you find yourself settling in if you could do that one thing over and over and over, not get bored by it? What do you think that would be?
I love portraits. Yeah. I love getting right up in somebody's face with one light and you know, like, you know, right here, getting and catching every little glint in their eye. I love that so much. If I only ever, but long exposure though. Oh my God. You want to talk about, so like you can't be any kind of a control freak and do long exposure. So I'm torn. If you would say if I had to pick one or the other, it's really tough because long exposures, you want to talk about hard, because you can't hardly control that. It's going to kind of end up doing what it wants. And then you have to, it's like you're doing a dance with the person. And like, sometimes I'll have to manually set off a flash strobe over here while I'm managing this. And it's just absolute insanity. And you might get like a handful of shots out of a whole session that are even worth a darn. Mm-hmm. But it's so rewarding when it happens, when you get that sweet spot.
The wonderful part of looking at a lot of your movement stuff, right, your long exposure stuff, is people don't understand, to get that in camera. Yeah, you can do it in Photoshop and you can layer everything and make it, all blend. But to get it in camera is such an exploration. It's so hard to do, so hard to capture. I do it a little bit. I'm not a master at it by any stretch, but you're absolutely right. When you want to get that image, and especially if you've got a really slow shutter, you're doing it thousands of times.
Oh, so much.
You have to find that one image that works. And I'll do it over and over and over and over again. I remember doing exactly. I was just looking at that.
Holy crap. Let me tell you, that poor girl. She's a ballerina, and catching her like up like that. Like she had to jump a lot. I felt so, I was just like, I can't even like thank you enough. Like she worked so hard. We both did. I'm like 1, 2, 3, go. And I'm sitting grabbing this and turning this off. And because like it's like this, you want to freeze this, but then you have to like make sure you get enough of an ambient light to catch the movement that's going after. And yeah, that was tough. But it was, and it's kind of like I can be a bit of a control freak because which you probably have figured out from me saying, no, I picture everything. And that's just out the window. Like, so I think that's why I talk about a dichotomy a lot. My absolute control in a portrait environment, and then absolute utter freaking chaos of shooting long exposures, and that's me.
Balance, man. I'm not gonna go dichotomy because that sounds so confrontational. Balance.
Right. Balance. Yeah.
Balance that you have.
Because it's fantastic. Like you say, like you see like this acceptance and this like chill aspect of me, but then like I'm also and so that there's a balance. Like I can be super chill, and what que sera, what may be will be, it's just, it is what it is. And that's just what's happening right now. Okay, can't do anything about it. Let's just move on. But then there's also the part of me that's just like, oh my God, the world's ending and we're all going to die.
But it's not. So I'm going to tell you, your younger self from 5 minutes ago, it's all going to be okay. All going to be okay. Fine. We'll get through it.
It'll be fine.
So I know a lot of people look at artists like you that have all of these shows and that are constantly putting on big gallery exhibitions. How do you find yourself working with galleries, or are you hiring places out and doing it yourself? Or are you going into an art show and just creating it yourself? Or are you getting pulled into galleries? How do you navigate that space?
So I tell you, so a lot. The way I started out doing it is just art calls. Like galleries will say, we're having a group show and this is the theme and you can submit your work. And I would submit, and you just getting out and building relationships with gallery owners and like showing your face and talking to people and paying attention to art calls for juried shows, things like that. There's all kinds of different ways that you can get shows. Now, I've never rented. I've always been like, people would actually approach me, hey, would you want to ever do a show at my gallery? And I'm like, absolutely. Let's talk about what we're going to do. Or the solo show I had at the Customs House Museum actually won that show through a jury competition where you submit your work and, tell about yourself as an artist. So it's kind of like that, like you got to kind of, there's ways you can search for keywords on Google, Google keywords. And so you can have like your alerts for keywords of art calls and things like that. There's websites that actually will list art calls that you can go to and sign up for, subscribe to get told about art calls. Follow galleries, follow their Instagram pages, go to their websites and look about how you can submit their work. And, and just but mainly just being around people, because, getting yourself out there. That's a lot of it. The more people know you and know who you are, then the more people want your work in their gallery. But I'd say if I were to tell somebody like how to start getting your work into galleries, I would say do any kind of group show you possibly can. They're a lot less stressful because it is not all about you, and they're cheaper for you because you don't have to produce an entire body of work. And the connections that you make at group shows are just invaluable. And you may or may not sell anything, but the connections that you make with the other artists, because more artists that that are showing, they're going to say, hey, I have this contact at XYZ gallery, and this is how you submit your work to be in their gallery. And then, so you just kind of got to do the footwork. Sure. And you got to be careful because some, do your homework. Some galleries very much do not like it if you come up to a gallery owner and start showing, look at this is my work, and trying to talk shop. Some people, they're very turned off by that. So my best thing is art calls. Answer them, find them. You can, they're everywhere, all over the country. You can do local, join your local art leagues. Like I'm the vice president of the Tennessee Art League, where we try to offer our members different showing experiences. We're starting to get back into that post the craziness of COVID, but that it's just, network, talk to people, and more people, the more things, the more opportunities that you have.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's true in so many aspects of life, right? There are so many people that struggle with business and they're just not networking enough or not marketing enough. Yeah. And you don't have to be out there and pushing and selling and look at my work. It's about authentic connections with people. Just build relationships. And, I think it's a missing piece. I think more people are getting it now. But I know that there was the Glenn Ross always be closing, like you're always got to be selling. You've always got to be doing something.
I'm not good at that.
Yeah, me either. And I just kind of get in there and talk to people, and eventually you're going to hear something where there might be an opportunity. But so long as you're just there and present and having those conversations, without a doubt, that's going to lead to something.
Right.
If at the very least it's a connection to another connection.
Oh, right? Absolutely. I cannot express
this game. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
I was just saying, I cannot express how beneficial group shows are.
Right.
Though, seriously, because it can tend to be easier to get your work into a group show because you don't have to show a gallery owner this huge cohesive body of work. Instead, you can pick like your best. Like if it has a theme, and like, well, I have this really great piece that I know would fit this theme, and you're not having to show them 20 pieces that are going to fill their whole gallery and have the potential to sell. Then you've got a gallery owner who gets to talk with you and see more of your work, because they'll be going, wow, what else do you have? That really helps people get their foot in the door with galleries. And I think that people, I don't know if a lot of people understand like just how valuable a group show is, and as far as getting your work in galleries. So if I would say, if anybody's listening to this right now, if you take anything away from what I'm saying about showing your work, search for group shows in your area. If you're having a hard time, like trying to get like a solo show or someone, or, and then like you said, the pay rent, people can do that. You can rent gallery space. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then that could be a way to get all your work out and people to see it, because the more of a buzz that you create about yourself and the more people are seeing you, then the more people want to see you, so that's also beneficial. But if you don't want to go that route, definitely get in those group shows. Super, super, super helpful.
No, it seems like you've kind of nailed that whole thing. You've got that on lock. You probably teach a course on getting into group shows and how to produce your work and how to print it out and what people like and what they don't like and just the art of conversation. That would be a whole nother hour and a half that you and I could
Which
spend.
I'd be happy to do if you ever want to.
I'm like, hell, I'll sit here. I got a whole box of wine. I'm not fancy. Like, let's do this. So,
but then you're going to have to teach me how to actually make money. That's where I fall.
We've got an ebook for sale. No, I'm not selling. So yeah, I mean, therein lies a big issue, right? You have the artists that are artists. You have the artists that are business people, and you have the business people that are business people. And that middle section, the artists that are business people, I think is a really small subset, a much smaller subset than we like to admit. And, what we're good at and what we're not. And, I'll be the first to admit I can do both. I struggle quite a bit. There are times where you're a prolific artist. There are times where you're making a ton of money. There are times where it's the absolute opposite, where you're not making a cent and you can't get a client. There are ups and downs. And I think if anybody tells you that they have the business of art nailed, then either one, they're the person and they've never struggled, and latch on to them. Do whatever you can to ride their coattails.
I want to be their best friend.
Be their best friend. Or they're not telling you the whole story.
They're lying.
They're lying. So I think there's a lot of that. I just love the fact that you admit into that.
Oh God, I suck at it. I suck at it. Like I think about all the missed opportunities of how I could have made more money off of this or made more money off of that, or like oh my God, when Machisma was first and all people were talking about it, if I would have done blah blah blah, and I'm so bad at that part. Like, get me talking to somebody and get, like, sell myself as far as like, you want me in your gallery, right? You like this is pretty, like, or I've got something to say, don't you want to say it too? I can do that all day long, but I'm a terrible business person. Horrible.
All right, we're gonna have to change that somehow.
Yes,
all right, so we're gonna have a whole series. Maybe this will be a series of conversations. And you teach me how to take a picture of a horse, and I'll teach you how to make some money.
Look, come on out to Nashville, and I've got lots of horses. I'll be happy to. I'm
there in a heartbeat. I did an equestrian shoot for a 12-year-old girl last summer, and I love being on horses. I am by no means a horseman, but I have no problem being on them, working with horses. And I was trying, it was my first ever shoot with horses. And one, I have no idea what I'm doing. Two, horses are way smarter than I ever gave them credit for. And three, it's really intimidating to walk up to a 1,200-pound animal and be like, hey, listen, I want to build a connection with you. If you could just have a seat right here, I'm going to set up some lights. They don't go for that a whole lot.
No,
they're on their own timeline. So I admire anybody that can work with animals. I'm not. All right. It's settled. I'm coming to Nashville.
Come out. We'll go out to we'll take our cameras and we'll go out to the farm, and I'd be happy to. I love it.
This sounds like a Dirty Jobs episode in the making, and I'm going to wind up sitting in a stall in horse poop with a camera.
You're probably gonna, yes, that's literally what's going to happen, madam. And like, I don't think you've been sitting in that pile of horse poop long enough.
I'm welcoming the hazing. It's going to be great. So as we kind of land this plane, a lot of this has been about, what you've built and how you've built it and the connection in your voice. And one of the things that I keep coming back to and hearing in you is that you have this compass that brings you true north, right? And it's the thing that weaves in and out of all of your work. But you also wander to the left and right lateral limits of art, right? You're painting, you're photographing, you're modeling, you're art directing, right? You're all over the place. Where are your goals? What's next for you in terms of developing this craft, developing that voice? Where do you see this going in 10 years? What are you telling your future self in 10 years where you want to be?
That is a really good question. And I'm almost speechless for the first time. That doesn't happen very often. I want to write a book. And I'm actually started working on one, and that is very, very hard. So that's my next thing is writing a book. I would like to, I really wanted Machisma to be a book, and I'd like for that to happen, like a coffee table book.
Sure.
I'd like to revisit that series again, just because it's very special to me. So possibly like a photography book, and be a better, I need to be a better business person, Matt. That's something that the possibility of one day being able to step out of the corporate world and be an artist full time is a dream, and not do commercial photography, but and that's tough to make a living as a fine art photographer. That's tough. And I'm not going to say, if you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen or you'll make an excuse. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to make an excuse, but I think that my the thing that's kind of in my way is what I said before, where I'm not a good business person. Right. And that's like, when it comes down to money, like, I don't know that I always tend to value myself and value my work or monetarily. Like, if you want me, like, I can do shows. That's a problem. Can tend to be a problem with doing the type of work that I do, is people love to come see it and they love to come talk about it, but they don't tend to put it on their walls. Mm-hmm. And I've got to try and find a happy medium. Like, how can you take activism type art mm-hmm. and make enough money off of doing that to make a living? Or do you say, I'm just going to stay in the corporate world and I'm going to not make a living off of art, and I'm just going to keep being true to myself, And so maybe just invest money enough to where I don't have to care if I'm making money off my art, and I can just make the stuff I want to make, and if I make it or don't, and make money off of it or not. That would be the dream.
I love watching your mind work through this, and yeah, I'm not going to give you any advice. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to record it here and set it in digital stone, so that in many years, when I'm talking to you as a best-selling author with, an investment portfolio worth billions, and you own several companies rather than working in them, I think, this will be a wonderful thing to revisit. This will show up in your Facebook memories, and you'll be like, yeah, I'm pretty clairvoyant. I predicted that.
Remember that time, Matt, when I said I suck at business?
Mm-hmm. I lied. I'm phenomenal at business. I have no doubt that you're going to conquer that. And no matter what you want to do, that you're going to reach that, without a doubt. I mean, just hearing the way that you've gone from discipline to discipline, I've got all the faith in the world. We're going to come back to this, and it's going to be exactly what you said.
Best-selling author. So that's it. There's where to go. I'm going to write that book, and that book's going to go crazy. And then I'm going to invest that money. And then I'm just going to be like, what am I going to? I'm just going to sit in a stall in the corner and take pictures.
But it's very easy. I'll send you the invoice for the consulting. It's fine.
All right. See, look, businessman. I need to learn from you.
Where can everybody find you?
So ninacovington.com. On Instagram, it's at Nina Covington. I even if you want to see some ridiculous silliness, I have the TikToks. Nina.Covington. Instagram, Nina Covington. It's my name. Usually.
All variations of, there aren't a whole lot of Nina Covingtons out there.
No. And especially not one when you do the Googles and there's nudity everywhere. So look, not safe for work. Feel free to go to my website, but be careful. There's going to be boobies.
We did pretty good here with the safe for work content. I think people can listen to this. Just don't go looking at anything. I didn't say
a curse word a single time, Matt.
Are you just gonna go outside and just shout into the wind now?
I'm just gonna go scream the F word outside. Yeah. I watched my mouth this whole time, but Nina Covington is usually like I said on Instagram at Nina Covington. I've been really bad about posting there. Twitter also Nina Covington, ninacovington.com, and then if you want to watch some ridiculousness, Nina.Covington on TikTok.
That's my first stop as we get off of this. I am going straight to TikTok.
Oh my God. Prepare just to be like, what is she doing?
Amazing. Thank you so much for hanging
Thank
out with me
you.
tonight.
You're really good
And
at this. You have that.
no,
You have that radio voice, Matt, and you lead the conversation so well.
we started with compliments. Let's end with compliments.
I'm going to compliment
shower
you
me.
more, Matt. You're awesome. You're awesome. You do.
You're delusional,
This was
but thank
a
you.
lot of fun. Very easy to talk with you. I
Well,
enjoyed it.
I think, one of the big things, the reason I wanted to do this is there aren't a lot of conversations like this happening. There are several, but I want to be able to get all of us, right, this community, start talking about real things, real life. And, there's so many of us that kind of peripherally know each other. We make assumptions about how someone works or what they're like. And I want to break down a lot of that and bring this community a little bit closer so that people can say, oh, wow, I had no idea Nina sucks at business, right? I feel better about myself. Shared experience, right? So, this has been really, really enjoyable. Thanks so much. I can't wait to come to Nashville and sit in the horse stall.
Seriously, come. Seriously. Well, I'd be happy to give you some horsey photography lesson. But I do want to, seriously though, what you guys are doing is wonderful. It's helped me feel connected to other artists again, where I've felt like disconnected because of the pandemic. I look forward to jumping in and dissecting artwork and having conversations. So I think what y'all are doing is very important, and I'm glad to be happy to be a part of it any chance that I get.
That means the world, and we're so happy that you're around. So thank you, Nina, so much. And I can't wait to see you in the group, and we'll talk soon. I promise.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.